Good morning, good afternoon, and or good evening, Smite fans. Welcome back to week 4 of the SCC Day 3 EU side of things here. Supersonic Blur for your chair 1, and joining me over there, that is Spooky breaking things down on the chair 2 side of things. We have the Hex Mambo, team number 1, undisputedly in the EU side of things, versus the Olympus Bolts, who don't quite have that title, unfortunately, here, Spooky, but if it's going to be anything for him, it'd be quite an impressive feat taking down the undefeated.
It's going to be an impressive feat if they can do it. They've got quite a road ahead of them if they want to pull that off. These past few weeks have not been the most successful for the Olympus Bolts so far. Confidence maybe a little bit shaky right now, but at the end of the day, what you can take from those losses is lessons to put towards the future. Every single time the Bolts fail, they take something away that can contribute to a further success down the line. They have to put all those pieces together here today. It's like you said, they're going up against the current behemoth of the division. The Mambos are at the top of the line. They have not fallen. They have not stuttered. They've had a couple games that go long. They've seen some 3-game sets, but consistently they've been able to take every single one of them all the way to the victory. It's a tough look for the Bolts, but they've had some time to work on things. They've had some time to learn those lessons and put them together. We can only see what they've got in store for us here.
Yeah, and as we're now reaching that sort of middle ground of the pack side of things, this is where you sort of get those sort of fractal distillations where everyone starts seeing their spots. This would be oh yeah, we're getting the science in on this one, the old GCSE science of fractal distillation. Oof, don't take me back there. But the idea here would be this would be such a big setup for them. But going against someone like Johnny, I mean, when you say Hex Mambo, the first person that comes to mind, it has to be Johnny, right?
Yeah, he's definitely a very big name on that roster. I mean, I don't know if you're
Mm.
necessarily wanting to ban out the Loki every game because Johnny's over there, but
Oh
he's
boy,
someone who
yeah.
you have to be aware of his playstyle. He's an aggressive player. He likes to get very
Mm.
active very early. He's going to try to take as much as he can. If you give this player an inch, Johnny will look to take a mile off of it. And so far, the Bolts have really struggled to stop players from doing that to them. They've struggled to
Mm.
mitigate aggression coming in against them. And it's a key factor here in this match today. So it's a question of have they learned enough to put it against one of the best players of that method?
Mm.
Only time will
It's
tell, and time is
it's
today.
yeah, it's one of those situations as well. Now we're in week 4. We saw it specifically sort of yesterday. A big one is teams are getting so comfortable in the meta. The bans are less, oh my god, this god is so difficult for us to deal with, to now, okay, what can we afford to let through? Can we
Yeah.
start banning away specific players? We saw Echrome yesterday. The Heimdallr ban was one that got taken away from them. And then when it was picked, we just saw them absolutely bully the guy out. 3-man rotations the whole time. I'm wondering whether or not this is something that Hex Mambo have taken a liking to themselves.
I think against certain players and certain teams, that's certainly a valid strategy. Echrome is a pretty well known Heimdall player. If you're seeing Echrome in your
True.
game, you're probably expecting him to be on that Heimdall at that point. Looking
Mm.
at the Bolts, I'm not sure that there's any signature picks there that Mambo has to be
Yeah.
overly concerned about. It kind of goes back to
Yeah.
that trend where the Bolts simply haven't been able to find much success,
Mm.
even playing the meta picks, even getting their comfort picks. This isn't a team that's really the biggest threat in the Mambo's minds. Right now, the Mambo wants to play their game and just execute it the way they usually do. They want to make sure they're doing what they do, and if the Bolts try to come up with their own game plan, Mambo should be confident at this point that their game plan beats the Bolts. So it's really on the Bolts to put that question in the Mambo's minds. If they can say, hey, you have to respect these picks, sure, Mambo will look to ban them away. The question is, do the Bolts have something after that initial question? Do they have something they
Mm.
can then follow it up with after the Mambo answers them? That's the biggest key right there.
I can understand where that comes from and I'm wondering whether or not Mambo used this as an opportunity to go, maybe we try switching it up ourselves. If we're that confident we can beat the bolts, is this a time to use this as scrims almost? I hate to say that. It sounds it sounds almost disrespectful to the bolts, but sometimes you got to cut your teeth on something. And with picks and bans underway for game one, let's go ahead and jump on into that if we could, and have a look and see where things are going to lie here for game one between the Olympus Bolts and Hex Mambo. We start things off here. I still think you got to ban something from Johnny in this first phase.
I mean, you could definitely look to ban away some of these junglers. Even the Vomit ban almost counts as a jungle ban as well. You could look at the Susano. It's been a little bit popular in his hands as well. I think if you put too much attention towards Johnny in this first ban phase, though, you leave way too much open for the rest of Mambo. These are all very potent players. If you give them a meta pick by saying, Johnny, you don't get to play Loki this game, Johnny's probably just going to laugh that off and say, okay, I didn't want to play Loki anyway. I've got a much bigger god pool than that. And then Mambo walks away with something like the Hercules, which, looking at the bans from the Bolts, might be the next ban. 2 solo laners off the board already. You can see the Bolts kind of share my mindset on that. These solo laners are kind of crazy right now. Get them out of here. You want your backline to succeed. The tier ban. That's not the one I was expecting. But
we're not in 10.5 yet.
Not quite yet. No stuns coming through on that ult. But you've seen Julio pilot it before. And frankly, I think the backline of the Bolts just doesn't want to deal with him. If Tier gets ahead, he's incredibly difficult to stop from just running around your backline. Does leave the Hercules up for themselves as well. Gonna go and pick that up.
Go to work.
It's basically 4 bans to the solo lane.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I've mentioned before, is first pick kind of gets these pseudo bans and taking it away from your opponent. So 4 bans all the way to Julio, and I like the call that you make there. Johnny's god pool is so wide. There's what, like 120 gods. I'd be surprised if Johnny wouldn't go, yeah, I'd play like 100 of those in the jungle and have some fun with it. So you can't ban this guy out at all on any potential pick. Whereas someone like Julio, we've seen very, very dominant gods. They're also meta picks. A couple of those could be flex picks as well. So getting rid of those feels pretty good. But Mambo go ahead and say, let's go back to Worlds. Let's just pick the best Worlds duo lane.
Yeah, I was going to ask, Blur, what patch are we on right now? Because I haven't seen this one for a couple of them. Now, it's not to say I dislike it. Maui and Ishtar are still both very good. Pulling up an island out of nowhere and just blocking off entire jungle routes is an incredibly powerful tool, especially when that landmass also just knocks the entire enemy team towards you. This is a great combo setup here. But over at the Bolts, though, not prioritizing their dual lane quite as much. They do have the Terra. Technically, some flex potential there, right? We could see Terra go solo, could see Hercules support. I think we're both at the understanding that Hercules is solo, Terra is in the support against this Maui. Which does mean the Bolts have just a little bit less pressure right now than Mambo does. Now, granted, they haven't chosen their hunter just yet, but waiting on it means Mambo now has the opportunity to ban this Kurnos away, which has been the typical answer to the Ishtar pick. Could still see something like the Rom if Mambo decide to leave that open as well. One of those will be getting through one way or the other. Habois. Flex potential for the Mambo as well. Could be jungle, could be mid. Nothing's set in stone here just yet. There's a lot of options still wide open, and it looks like Bolts are expecting this Habois to be jungle, perhaps banning a Neath mid away?
Well, with the Chiron ban as well, these do look to be targeted toward Hawks. We have seen this Neath Chiron, Amuzen Carb sort of sits in that same sort of vein. With Marty Curtis banned away from the Hex Mambo, it's no surprise. Mambo on the other side, they're kind of funneling Jockin to pick this this Kernanos, having banned away the Thor and Circuit. This, to me, also signals the Habois in the jungle, because when you ask what are good counters to Habois, Thor and Circuit are usually my JR2's top answers. But yeah, I'm questioning what patch we're on right now as well, because that's an Amaterasu lock-in for Most likely Julio.
Hey, listen, Blur, if it works, have fun with it. Mambo have been on a win streak so far. They know they have characters they like. And if they also perform well on those characters, no reason not to go to them. You've got a great scaling in this Ama and this Habois. Like this Fenrir as an answer. You know when Mambo is weakest right now, it's in that early game. Also when Fenrir is strongest, on her being hovered, not going to be locked in. It is the switch to Kurnos. I'm a little bit disappointed as well. I'm with you there. We could have had something very spicy.
I know. I imagine all the questions I get to ask you about. How does Onher walk into the team comps? We haven't seen him for a long time. Why haven't we seen him? Where is it going? But never mind. We'll ask those another time. Maybe we'll be seeing one of those picks in game 2. Maybe game 3 if we get that far. But Mambo, it is going to be a double hunter comp. And it's the Amuzen Carb last pick into a Fenrir, though? That's a lot of pressure going to be on that mid lane.
It is confidence that the Mambo is walking into this with. They're drafting with confidence. Now, Bolts did kind of have their number. They knew the Mambo wanted that hunter mid, so they took away the Kurnos, took away the Neath. There's probably the 2 safest options available to the Mambo at that point. And just leaves the Amus and Cobb available to them. But still, it's not bad into the Fenrir. It does have to wait till level 5, but once AMC does have ultimate, it is a cripple that he can launch into the Fenrir. At that point, Fenrir should just be Ragnarocking him. Hopefully you have beads available for that, but there's only really one way to find out, isn't there, Blair?
That there is. Bolts looking to scale Mount Olympus here against Hex Mambo and come out victorious. They got quite the mountain to climb up, so let's go ahead and get on into game number 1. Hex Mambo, the undisputed team here. Let's see if Bolts can go ahead and take this out. And it looks like so far, everything's where we expected. But my money, though, after yesterday's starts to the EU side of things, I want to know how these supports start things off.
I don't think we'll see quite as much aggression as we did yesterday. Kha'Zix,
Bro, I hope not.
Impo, not really on the aggressive gods here. Impo on this Terra isn't going to be able to do a whole lot at level 1 to run at the enemy team. Now, that's not to say we haven't seen it before. Terras do still like to get active with those Terra walls. Try to stun someone out on their purple buff, but so far, it's just a more standard start. Just Oh
no.
That's not intentional, I don't believe.
I don't think it is. I mean, Terra gets AoE basics, so it's a start, but unfortunate situation there. Said, roll with the punches, Olympus Bolts. Roll with the punches. And I guess that now breaks the question of, will the Hex Mambo be able to punish? And they do. They get beads out from Jockin very early.
That's a very fast beads. I'm not sure the Jockin really needed to beads that particular pull. Impo was standing right up there next to Mambo's duo lane. If they tried to do anything there, Impo could have turned, but it is level 1 Terra at that point. Not the full kit, not a whole lot of synergy there until she gets the monolith, the walls, and the dash online. Better to be safe than be sorry, and Jockin's already a little bit sorry having this green buff, so best just try to mitigate the losses as best as possible. Hager, not quite on the mark with the buff there, but I do like this solo lane for the Bolt. If Sager can clean that up a little bit, keep those buff pushes going, this is a solo lane that does favor the Bolt. So the way that Mambo's drafted their duo, I really think that is where the Bolt should be placing their attention. Try to get Sager ahead and keep Julio behind. Ama is a god that scales late. Hedgehog! Oh boy.
That was aggressive. He's going aggressive in on Hawk, just trying to show that he can show up early, but as you saw there, Hawk is undeterred. So health bar a little lower than I think Hedgehog would like there, but Julio, like you said, they got to be aggressive. Kept an eye on some health bars. And Julio's got down to about 20%, but thanks to the sustain, hasn't been doing too bad. So keep an eye on this duo lane. Impark feeling the impact right now of this chain CC coming through. No such luck, though, on being able to pick up a kill, just dropping members low. But so far, this is actually favoring the Bolts. They're the ones who have got 300 gold up from waves going to tower, it seems.
So far, so good for them. I think part of that just comes from the fact that, well, back to that solo lane, Sager is going to have a little bit more pressure over there. He's going to be able to force these waves a little bit closer to Julio's tower line than Julio's going to be able to do to him. Just being basic attack oriented and a little bit of ability in the early game, this Amaterasu just does not outclear this Hercules in any way, shape, or form. What's important to note is the Bolts aren't looking to take advantage of that. They do pull out the beats from Cozy, though.
That's a good look for him to start with, as we do see the rotation come through from Hedgehogs. And now the timing on it as well. Not so much for the gold buff, but actually for the respawn of this purple buff. They'll go ahead and strip that one away. It's a nice look for the Olympus Bolts here. And in fact, they may be looking for a little more, as the rotation from Hedgehog is still sticking around. But unfortunately, Spuddio, smart enough not to overcommit, and dashes back to tower.
Just a little bit odd how long the Bolts waited to try to capitalize on that. The Monolith came up and it was a great position. Perhaps Impact just didn't have the dash quite off cooldown at that point. Even if it was, he actually didn't hit the Monolith with it. Hedgehog a little bit slow on the leap in. Again, perhaps not entirely off of cooldown just yet. Mambo gets to kind of walk away from that one for free. Hedgehog doesn't get anything on that left side of the map, except for that purple buff. Does mean Julio gets to secure his own blue buff over there. Sager also secures his. I was expecting to see Hedgehog playing for that blue buff on the right side. I was expecting to see a little bit more aggression, trying to strip resources away from Julio. But the way it's going right now, the Bolts dual lane definitely has some spark in them. Definitely willing to step up and fight right now. You can facilitate that, and Jockin can find a lead and start rotating out of this lane before Spuddio. Could be massive.
Oh, he caught the dash! I like that! We were both waiting in anticipation. Will it be an aggressive play? And it will. Julio ends up falling to Sager. Great work from Hedgehogs there. Waits out to try and get the dash. Cancels it perfectly. And then goes in with the ultimate. Perfect first blood. And, like you said, Sager already has a winning matchup. Now, he's got first blood to boot.
I'm honestly shocked Julio died there. If he had just dashed earlier or dashed later, he was completely out. He hit the perfect dash to be canceled by Hedgehog, because Hedgehog had already started the jump. That's what signaled the danger to Julio. He heard the sound cue. Didn't account for the stun. Hedgehog keeps on going in, trying to take the fight to Johnny, and does so quite successfully. Unfortunately, without Sager there, they can't really continue that pressure onto the blue buff, so Johnny's just going to walk over, kill the buff, and be just fine. Jockin! Ooh, good wild hunt.
Aggressive 2v1, looking to try and disengage. Both ultimates come down. The beads, though, end up still getting blocked by the landfall. The dash aggressively gets pulled back in. Now, Jockin's kind of in an awkward spot, looking to try and get back to tower. Also buys a little bit of time to stop that from happening. Even so, the health bar only ends up at about 200, but the rest of the team from Olympus Bolts, they're trying to go aggressive in this jungle, and it looks like Bolts have somewhat of an answer to Johnny, and that's just force him to ult away on a defense. Very good overall. Mambo does take the winning end of that particular trade, but now this purple buff, they don't have ultimates to defend this. Don't, and so look at what they're looking for. It's not just this buff. They'll take the kills if they can. They get the Terra ultimate forced, so Hex Mambo are not... I can't say they're happy with getting their buff stolen, but at least they get it for a trade out in something. My question is, though, are Mambo okay to get hammered this hard early? Do they just go, we've got this late? I mean, right now, they are taking some L's across the board. I'm not gonna lie, right? That's the second purple buff invade in as much time, right? I don't think Spuddio's gotten anything but his first purple buff so far. Difference right now, 1,500 gold between the two teams. 7 minutes in, maybe a little bit more than you were expecting, but not unmanageable. As long as the Mambo can stay on track and keep scaling upwards, they definitely do have a fantastic late game to scale into. An eye on Hawk making the rotation of this gold buff. Let's see if it becomes a problem for them. It is a 2v3, but It will only result in just the buff being taken. Actually, bolts still grab the buff. Joachim will pick that one up. And now Hedgehog's looking to just roam out. The first item here for Hedgehogs, I always look at the jungler's first item as a signifying the play style. Jotun's Wrath is all about the CDR. That to me signifies Hedgehogs just looking to either burn beads or burn players when they're down.
Yeah, this is really looking to abuse the Fenrir early game as hard as possible. You want those abilities to be off cooldown as much as you can. You want to be using them very frequently. Most importantly, you want to be able to Ragnarok multiple times while beads are down on someone. You have to create the opportunities and find them. This item is the best way to facilitate that. Hedgehog, expect to see him get possibly more aggressive. He's already been just running at the Mambo. But what's key here is he has to maintain that. He cannot take a step back at this point. If he really wants this attack to be effective, we need to see a little bit more aggressive play. We've seen him more than ready to take fights. We've only seen a couple invades so far. We've seen it go over to that purple buff. That's really the only buff that's been targeted by the bolts from the Hex Mambo. I want to see Hedgehog on that purple buff. I want to see him looking at the red buff. I want to see him on blue buffs and not getting mauled by Kha'Zix.
Well, Johnny has made the adaptation here. Gold buff is up, so if nothing else, this will bait around for that. iPod's made the rotation as well. This gold buff is being very highly prioritized by the bolts. They'll push multiple members away, but Hedgehog's gone in because he gets the beads forced and now just has to try and dance around. Blue buff, or purple buff, excuse, has been invaded successfully. Bolts are hammering away at this, looking for a potential fight. Johnny ends up having the beads forced, and Johnny ends up falling to Joaquin. Hawk gets taken down, who was trying to make their way in. A great look for the Olympus bolts this early on. And with these two members down, beads and ults forced, I wouldn't be surprised if they push this further and go gold.
Yeah, there it is. Blur. We went into this talking about how the bolts are the underdogs here. They've got this monumental task ahead of them. They're just taking it to the Mambo. They do not care about standings. They don't care about preferences. They don't care about the odds. They are simply taking the fights. They've drafted for aggression, and they are utilizing it very effectively. They're able to split up Mambo on that last buff invade, force Johnny back into the lane, so that it was just Kha'Zix and Spudio trying to defend the purple on their own. And they simply could not do that. They didn't have the health bars, didn't have the resources to push 3 people off. So what did the bolts do? All right, they secure themselves their purple buff, and then they split. They start heading over to the mid lane because they're expecting Hawk to make that rotation. They know he's on the way, and they simply 2v1 him in the jungle, give Hedgehog yet another kill. Things are starting to snowball just a little bit for the bolts. If they can keep this rolling, keep it building, maybe in for an upset here. But Blur,
That'd be an
games
impressive
are long.
upset.
We're not done just yet, so
Yeah, we're only 10 minutes in on this, but it is a 3,000 gold lead. That I think is the most important one. But for me, it's this idea that if everyone's looking at Hex Mambo, I came into this, my first thought was, oh my god, Johnny's absolutely insane. Johnny's the problem. The idea is like, okay, let's either A, break Johnny's ankles by forcing him to ult defensively so he cannot make a play, or B, don't give him a platform of the rest of the team to back him up with. And that they've played both options here with this Fenrir. I wouldn't mind taking a look at what Hedgehogs was leveling first, because by the looks of it, it was the Unchained. And that, I think, is just all to stick on Johnny.
yeah, I think that's absolutely the right play there. Johnny on the top walk is not the typical Johnny pick, right? It's not that early game aggressive pick. It's actually the brutalized side's max first that it looks like. And so the fact that the bolts are able to just put Hedgehog on this Fenrir and say, okay, Johnny's not doing the normal Johnny things. Let's make sure he never does. It's really affecting Mambo's ability to answer back on the bolts. If you don't have that jungler, your answers to these buffs are a lot more difficult. Now, granted, he's only 0-1. He's only 1 level down. It's not the pits for Johnny just yet. It's not the pits for Mambo. This lead is much bigger than one would typically expect to see at a 12-minute point, especially when you consider the difference in these two teams' standings. I think the Mambo walked into this a little bit comfortable, maybe with the same mindset that we did. The Bolts don't have that same comfort. The Bolts are playing on the edge. They're sharp right now. They're needing to make everything count, and there is just more aggression.
Big landfall, cuts off a lot of the path. Hedgehog's pulled back in. Jockin is trying to get away, gets his own dash force, and Spudio cleans up the kill with a lot of work from Johnny. This time, they're the ones who get the 4-man rotation over here early. As Zyport was just back in base, tries to make it there, but just a little too late.
Able to catch Jockin's dash there, wasn't able to make any distance. That's why you can't count the Mambo out just yet here, Blur. They may be behind, now about 3,000. They were able to shore that up by about 1,000 gold in that fight alone. But there's still a team that's been around the block. They still have that team synergy. And they're a team that can adapt is the most important thing. That's what we saw there, was Mambo realized Bolts are just going to keep coming to this purple buff. They're going to be there on respawn. So we need to be there a little bit beforehand, all right? They tried that. Didn't really work. They still lost the buff. All right, let's try something new. Let's just be there way before it spawns. I will just take the fight to the Bolts. Bolts weren't in position. They didn't have everyone ready for that invade because they weren't going to invade just yet. Mambo ends up taking the better end of that, and Spudio finally gets himself another purple buff. I think this is the second one of the game for him. But here is more objective focus. Mambo's here.
They know about this, and they have some good cooldowns available to them if they need to. Spudio start putting out a lot of damage. Mambo come in and steal it away. Who actually was able to grab that? Because Sega's over here as well. Honey, 51? Honey, you gotta be kidding me.
There's no way the Honey steals that away. Look, I can understand it, right? Neither team has a bunch of secure. You're looking at Johnny for secure on these objectives. Johnny wasn't able to step up. At that point, it's a contest of burn. Who can shred it last? Unfortunately for the Bolts, it was Hawk with his little honeybees there. If you don't have secure, and the enemy team is stepping up, you have to make a choice. Are we 50-50 in this?
Oh boy.
Or are we taking the fight? Bolts chose the 50-50. They lost the coin flip. That's the way it breaks down sometimes. They just have to be a little bit more mindful. If you're ahead and the enemy steps up to your Fury, you gotta be taking that fight. You gotta just walk at them and say, you don't get to be here anymore. Now, because of these couple recent losses, they no longer really have the advantage anymore. It's shrunken quite a bit. Now only about 2,000 gold separating these two teams. Bolts have to start cleaning this up just a little bit here.
Yeah, it's never the first mistake that kills you. It's the second mistake after. And that Gold Fury may very well be that second mistake here. So keep an eye on these solo laners. Both of them looking to get some support from their junglers. But the knockup from Johnny is good! And Hedgehogs cannot withstand that damage. In fact, hell, Hercules can't withstand this damage either. They're going to keep diving for this. One more shot is all they really need, but the mitigate wounds is there.
Why?
Unfortunately, you turn the corner, you get blasted with water. Not a good look. That is 2 kills. In fact, make it 3 because in the mid lane they've got members here. Hex Mambo. They've caught the fist that was punching him in the face. They're doing that anime thing of like, my turn now.
I'm not sure which anime you're watching there, Blur, but I'll agree with you anyway.
It's generic anime. I don't watch that much anime either. I'm too busy playing Smite.
Oh, what do you mean either? Listen, Blur, I watch anime, all right? Don't come at me like that, all right? You sit down over there. But no, it comes back to the question you asked a little bit earlier. Can the Mambo simply wait it out and scale? Yes. Yes, they can. And they have done so. They've now gotten their backlines to level 16. Julio also level 16. They're starting to approach that late game point. I generally consider late game to be 17 to 20 in that area. They're just about to leave the mid game in my eyes. And right now, they're pretty much just reaching their apex of power here. Bolts have not been able to push their lead nearly enough. They stumbled around that gold buff. They stumbled again at the Fury. And now you can see the differences in the team fights. And that, I think, is the real key factor there. The Bolts are not as synergized as the Mambo. Mambo goes in and they are chaining their abilities together, using each other to make sure their next ability lands on their target. The Bolts aren't doing that. The Bolts are unfortunately missing abilities, and they're not comboing off of each other to make sure that doesn't happen. Sager missed the pluck. All right. Hedgehog goes in, misses the Unchained. Okay, well, suddenly our two biggest tools are down. Both ults get burned defensively, and for naught. Mambo simply walks through them on that right side. Not sure why Sager decided to turn the corner and wait. He was trying to drive and strike Johnny back into the tower.
Yeah.
But Julio was already tanking it, and he didn't have the health bar to really survive the burst that Johnny was going to put out. Didn't end up working. At this point, those aren't the chances that you can take anymore. The Bolts have to regain their footing. That's going to start around the Oni Fury. Both teams stepping up around it, but Mambo certainly has more people here.
They do, and for the first time, Hex Mambo are going to be the ones in pole position to start up this Oni Fury. They've got 4 members around, and looks like Olympus Bolts do want to go ahead and try and make a defense here. Let's see if they can find it. They cannot. Hex Mambo will secure it. And this time, Olympus Bolts, they've lost that luster they were looking for. Julio's made a rotation in with Sega into mid lane. Johnny will beat, but Johnny does just too much damage, gives the dog a bath. Unfortunately, that is going to spell a spill for Hedgehogs. And now Hex Mambo with a member lead. They can look to try and see what else they can find. Good pull by Julio into the jungle. But unfortunately now, you said we're entering this sort of mid-game stage. And at this point in time, I gotta ask, like, can Hex Mambo just start dictating fights or objectives?
Oh yeah, they're absolutely in control of this game right now. The gold lead may not look super significant, but just take a look at the XP right now. Johnny is 3 levels up over Hedgehog. Where did that happen? Fury and right side of the map. He has simply found a lot more success. Hedgehog was able to put a lot of pressure down early. But look at his kills. He only has 1 kill, 1 assist. No matter how much damage he was doing to Johnny's health bar, he wasn't actually confirming the kills. And he wasn't finding any XP off of that. If you're not securing the kill, and you're also not farming, you're simply losing out on XP at that point. Johnny, for his part, didn't find the damage to be big enough that he had to reset off of it, so he simply went to his camps and continued farming. That's where this deficit started to accrue, and as the game goes on, Johnny is a late game god. He just comes into his own on this Habois as we reach the 20-minute mark now. Just has more kill potential than Hedgehog. He has more survivability, as weird as that sounds, because Hedgehog is going to be jumping in, trying to find a target. If you jump in at the wrong time, if you jump into multiple people, we've already seen, they will turn and burn him down. He's not able to really find success anymore. Sager!
Very aggressively positioned themselves. Mitigate wounds, puts them back at about half. As Hedgehogs again tries to find a backline member, but just can't. Huge 2-man pull coming through with a landfall. Sager kicked up and kicked out of this engagement. Julio leading the dazzling offensive. Back in to block everyone off. Sager, that is just it, my friend. You are not getting out of this one. And now Jockin's beads and Aegis are forced. And that's 1,000 damage crushing wave right there. 3 members full. iPod and Import are still around. But this Fire Giant is where Hex Mambo are looking. And if Olympus Bolts show up, I think they're just going to get shut out.
I don't think they can show up. They've got iPort and Impok here. Impok tries, gets melted down right away. He's gone. iPort, not long for this world either. That is a clean sweep from the Mambo. This is exactly what I was talking about, Blur. The Bolts are not on the same page. They're not functioning as a full singular unit. They're functioning as multiple pieces that are all kind of doing their own thing right now. Hedgehog goes all the way in, just gets shredded by Spudio because he doesn't have any backup there. All right, well, now our jungler's dead. Who's gonna burst down Johnny? No one, because now a massive landfall comes through. No.
Oh, no.
No.
Yeah, I like the attempt from Hedgehog to be like, hey, let me go pick off Johnny, but you invested Blink, then Unchained, and neither of those found a home. Then you invest Brutalize, and it's just a little too late at this point. Johnny's damage output's too good. More importantly, there is no such thing as a 1v1 in Smite. There is always someone around. And Hex Mambo, like you said, working as a unit. Julio is pushing this down. Why? Because the rest of the team wants to be over this way anyway. Julio backs up. Why? Because the team is not quite there, and they'd rather get the Fury. It's still all cohesive for the whole unit.
Yeah, listen, if that play from Hedgehog had happened on his side of the map, I'm a lot more in favor of that. But you're taking the fight to Johnny, who's 3 levels up on you, has a fire giant, and it's in his own jungle, man. Like, that's Mambo territory. You think they aren't going to dance on through that? Now it's all 5 here. Looking at this left bird. It's a tough defense for the Bolts. 9k, 10k down.
Let's see if they've got it in the back pocket for it. This Merlin damage will help clear out a lot of the wave. But even so, Hex Mambo have all the ults available. Johnny the only one without relics, aside from Spuddio coming up very soon. Expect that to be go time for him.
Hyport is half health from Honey. It's ridiculous damage coming through. Now the rest of Mambo's coming through.
Big ult there coming through. Johnny cleans up Jockin, and that's pushed everyone else. Hedgehogs is trying to loop around. They've got caught out without being able to make their way back in. So the Phoenix is gone. Hex Mambo going aggressively. They pull back in Impark, and that Terror's gone. Great work there. They forced 2 members out. Meanwhile, mid lane is being looked at by Johnny. The rest of the team will start deciding, do they want to go for an end or not? And yeah, there's still a mid-tier 2 tower, so they can't actually grab this right now. I think Hex Mambo got a little bit too aggressive, but no, never mind. It was a bait because they're going to get a deicide, and now they're going to end the game. Are you kidding me? Spuddio backing out into the Phoenix uses beads and Aegis, and then the rest of the team from the other side of the wall says, surprise, that was intentional. What was that?
I have never seen a team baited quite so hard as Spuddio just baited the Bolts. He should have been dead. Should have been dead. Oh, what's this? An ADC walking through my Phoenix with my tier 2 up? Ha! Surely they will be dead. No problem. I've got my jungler here. I'm a Hercules. Wait, why is my jungler dead? Where did the rest of the team come from? Masterclass from the Mambo. And really, that's the story of this entire game. They're all just functioning together. The communications are immaculate. Spuddio put themselves there intentionally to create the opportunity to end that game. And the fact that it worked, hey man, if it works, I can't say anything.
I mean, I just wish we got the opportunity to do interviews after these games. And I am assuming here that Hex Mambo would win game 2 or game 3, but I would want to interview, but I want to know who didn't realize that tier 2 was still up in mid. But either way, great play for them. And I love the recognition of just hanging around. They saw that Bolts were a little bit scrappy, a little bit disconcerted with each other's health bars or where everyone was. So if they just stay around as a group, they'll be able to take a counterpunch, because they looked like they wanted to end, but then just couldn't quite until they found that window.
Yeah, it was constant fighting from the Bolts, and it was working to an extent. They were able to pick up some early fights. They got themselves the Gold Fury, had really good map awareness to go straight to the Pyromancer as well afterwards. It's really just that second Fury that really did them in. If they just have a little bit more discipline around those objectives, things probably go a lot better for them. If they've been able to continue building that lead, some of those fights probably look a little bit different. At the very least, look a little bit closer. At the end of the day, it wasn't really the gold that changed things. It wasn't the XP differences that changed things. It was just how much better Mambo was playing as a team that really put Bolts in the ground in game 1.
It's a should've, could've, or would've for the Bolts here. I love the fact that we saw them come out swinging.
Yeah.
And I hope that we'll get to see them doing the exact same thing in Game 2. But before then, we'll throw it to a quick break.
I don't do this often, you caught me off guard. All of my friends said you moved out west. You tell me stories underneath sunsets. Could it be more than just one night? Kissing the cab ride, head turning left, right. Get a ticket for two to wherever you choose. Drinking some red out of the blue. You say my name with your accent, makes me remember how much I missed you. Hope you're planning to stay for a million days. You'll be my summer in December. Hey boy, trust my intuitions always. I'm not superstitious, I got lucky. Stole your heart and it was mine for the taking. I'm bad at pretending, you know I'll be true. Sunday mornings and midnight lights turn into songs that you watch me write. Stole your sweater on that night. You took a picture, keep by my bedside. So you're mine when you're gone, baby, please don't be long. I got my ticket to the west side. You say my name with your accent, makes me remember how much I missed you. Hope you're planning to stay for a million days. You'll be my summer in December. Hey boy, trust my intuitions always. I'm not superstitious, I got lucky. Stole your heart and it was mine for the taking. It was mine for the taking. It was mine for a million days, in a million ways. Stole your heart and I got lucky. Stole your heart and it was mine in a million ways, for a million days.
Well, after that game number 1 here, Bolts fight back aggressively to start things off, but unfortunately the stain that they were able to put onto the Hex Mambo was bleached away almost immediately as soon as the 10-minute mark rolled around. And Johnny on this Hautbois, you just can't stop a tidal wave, man.
Blur, before I get into all that, I need you to tell me right now, you said bleached away just because I've been dogging on bleach, didn't you?
I might have. No one's going to be able to answer that. That's
I hate
an
it
inside
here.
joke for us.
I hate it here. I'm done with this. You're solo casting now. Go ahead.
All right, sweet. So yes, coming in on game number 1, I don't test me. I will. I absolutely love what we saw from the Bolts. Jockin got off to a fantastic start in the early game. The fact that Kozzy had to have beads was very impressive. I think the Hedgehogs knew the job they wanted to do, but didn't recognize the situation had changed. So hunting down Johnny, maxing out Brutalize, fantastic call. Doing it 20 minutes in when you're 3 levels down. Yeah. All right. Now you're bored and having to listen to me do it. And to be fair, I've rambled long enough to where picks and bans are already. So, Spooky, do you think we're going to see any real changes up here for the Bolts specifically?
I think the Bolts need a lot of changes. Although it doesn't necessarily need to be in the draft itself. Their problem wasn't that they drafted poorly. It was that they weren't able to fully execute at the midway point into the game. Early game looked fantastic. Mid game, things started to slip away from them. If they do want to run that same style back, I think they're more than within their rights to do so. They just have to keep pushing a little bit. However, I would argue that it would be beneficial for them to switch now because the Mambo has already shown that they can adapt to that game plan. If the Bolts try to run the same thing back, most likely what will happen is the Mambo will simply have an answer for them much sooner, and they won't have as much time to find those successes. Mambo do switch things up just a little bit by banning that Hercules away. It's a little bit surprising to me. It tells me that Julio just wasn't enjoying the matchup very much. He's this Aphrodite available, though. The Bolts are going to go ahead and hover that, likely lock that in as their first
to find
pick.
a soulmate.
Well, I have to wonder whether or not Mambo wanted to debate this. I mentioned before we got into game 1 picks and bans, the meta's at a point now where you start asking, can we target ban? Can we afford to let things through? And the Aphrodite does get through, and it almost forces the Bolts' first pick here. And I love that decision from Mambo.
Oh, Agni come through as well for the Mambo. Ishtar runs right back with them. Agni as well does apply the anti-heal fairly well once you get the Divine Ruin online. Doesn't have it in the kit like that Marty they banned away does. They're okay with that. This Agni's been really popular lately. The ability to just drop so much damage over walls from safety, AoE stuns. So much going for this Agni right now. This is an interesting one if it gets locked in. The Daji we have not seen for a hot minute here. Blur buffs haven't come through just yet for her. This is still pre-patch. But if you're looking over here, Agni doesn't have anything in the way of CC immunity, doesn't have any way to get over walls. If you're looking to chase this Agni down, Daji is a good one to do it. It's not going to be as effective against the Ishtar, who does have some CC immunity built into the kit. The fact that they also took this Maui away from the Mambo, I think tells you where the Bolts' heads are at here. They're respecting their opponents. They are looking to switch things up a little bit. They don't mind. It does also mean this Aphrodite likely to be in the mid lane rather than in support, which I don't think is something we've seen a whole lot of since her changes. I'm interested to see how that goes, because remember, the healing doesn't scale with power anymore. It's a flat amount at this point. Maybe we see go solo lane or something, get a little bit tankier anyway. Some options available to the Bolts here still.
And we notice out that the Bolts are banning away what Julio has been sat. In fact, you can argue all 5 bans are at Julio at this point, which is incredible. It does lead me to think that maybe Sega wants to play this Afro, but we did see Venenu pilot the Hell mid, who is very characteristically seen as the support at this point in time, but Johnny gets back the Hautbois. Hawk gets one of their signature picks in the Agni, as far as I'm concerned. And now with this Hucha lane, whatever Bolts decide to pick into the solo lane, you are going to get run at and just face checked every single wave.
Really like this Kikolan as well because it does have anti-ult inherent to the kit. And what is happening with these hovers?
Okay.
No, I'm not going to say anything until we actually see this get locked in. For all I know, this is just production. Okay, it's locked in. That's a circuit. So, let's look at things a little bit here. Let's look at our options. We could see Daji,
Well, if it's
I would want to be in the jungle. Circuit could be support. They might put Maui over to solo lane. I don't like that.
This is so weird. This is so weird. Let's go with what we know for certain. Chernobog is in the game. That's all I can say. Because you can be like, you can put anything anywhere at this point. I think the only thing we can be certain on is Johnny's got this Hobwa. Actually, I can't even say that because NA's run Agni Jungle. Yes, I'm reminding you again. As Nox comes through. At the very least, Mambo have a comp that looks like it's been in the game before. I don't know what bolts to do. Did they roll like the Smite random god wheel and say these are the gods we're picking?
Listen,
it looks like it.
It does look like it, but I hope that's not what happened because they had a good game one. They just had a fail point and they weren't able to recover from it. This is not the game where you just start going off the wall. The more orthodox stuff was working for the bolts. They just needed to work on the execution of it. Game two, everything's on the line for them. I'm not sure that this is the time to be going nutty with your picks.
Well, it's time to place your bets, everyone in Twitch chat. Where do you think every god's going? Let's go ahead and get into game two. I'm as eager to find out as I think everyone else is, so if we can, let's find it out. It is a solo lane Aphrodite. It is a circuit in the jungle, a Daji mid, which I'm not gonna lie, I never got to say I wanted it to be Daji mid, Maui support, and Chernobog ADC. And to be honest with you, I really like this idea. Put something aggressive in the mid lane that iPort can try and fight back with.
That makes one of us. I'll say that. That makes one of us that likes this. iPort on an aggressive character, it makes sense. What I would like is a little bit of a safer character, though. I think if iPort does go in, Hawk can very easily just dash stun him. He's not really doing a whole lot in this mid lane until probably level 5. The strength of this Daji is not simply in its all-in potential. It's in the potential to come from out of vision and just start shredding your health bar after you've burned an escape already. The chase potential is what makes this Daji strong. If you're just sitting in front of Hawk in the mid lane, it loses the surprise factor. You can see it coming. You're not saying, okay, where's the Daji at? Yes, you're going to be wondering where the Circuit is at. But the Daji, I feel, just loses a little bit of that impact. Now, the rotations from mid lane may be more effective. You could definitely still utilize that same kind of strategy. But that relies on you actually finding good rotations to the other side. Which in game one, those weren't super common. You had your purple buff invades, but not a whole lot of gank opportunities.
Well, with the rest of this, the very least we can say that the dual lane has got off to a better start.
Oh!
Everyone's getting the right buffs. Mid lane not getting off to such a great start, but that said, Hedgehogs is going very aggressively into Johnny. iPort does get to disengage. There is a blink available for Hedgehogs. Gone with this Claw Shard again to try and be aggressive if they so choose. But look at the pathing. Hex Mambo do not want to step anywhere near that side of the jungle.
Uh-oh, well, he's got a flank on 2. Hawk is just fine.
No! iPort blinks in! And iPort, unfortunately, goes a little too aggressive. Double stun there means that First Blood does go the way of Hex Mambo. They do answer it back immediately and take out Hawks.
I can't even say anything. That's just so unlucky for the side of the bolts. You see a Hawk dash away. Great. Let's get aggressive now. Oh no, I just blinked into the stun. Johnny still being chased through his jungle by Hedgehog. What is this?
And now Hawk. Hawk is going aggressive. Hawk has absolutely shown
Oh
up.
my.
Ever since Hawk has been in even the opening tournament, Hawk playing this Agni is one of the notes in my book saying, don't give him this god. And you can see he's so comfortable just dashing in on people.
I mean, you have to be with the Agni. That's a big part of the kit. He's using that dash aggressively, not just holding it for safety. Hawk has that down. Here's the Q from iPort. Not going to be able to get there in time. So far, it has been Mambo kind of controlling this mid lane a little bit here. We've seen some signs of aggression from the Bolts, but it feels like Hedgehog without that Fenrir isn't nearly as effective. Tries to find the damage, puts a little bit in, wasn't able to secure anything. Fight turns around on them. The Surcat is a pick that needs to scale up just a little bit, at least hit level 5 before it starts really looking for the aggression. Get that crit chance online, get the 100% anti-heal going. Right now, as it is, the Bolts need to take just a little half step back, wait, get their ultimates online, because they do have some very powerful ults available to them. And oh boy.
iPort? Well, iPort does get to go up into the air. Johnny, though, will wait out the beats to get closer to iPort. Pops out their shard as well. With the aggressive ult forward, closes the gap. And that will spell another spill for iPort here again. This mid lane seems to be where all the action's happening, and I can't blame Hex Mambo.
Yeah, that was just clinical play from Johnny. It's like you said, he waited on that beast to make sure he was closer to iPort, so he didn't have the escape route available to him, and then you just run him down. That's what Habwa does. If you're going to pick something that likes to fight and is this risky, you can expect to see some answer back from the Mambo. iPort has to step all the way up to the wave in order to start clearing it. It means he has to be out of position. He can't clear from range like Hawk can. Mambo is recognizing that. They're recognizing the opportunities there to start looking for the aggression. Look at Hawk just dropping 3 bombs. He doesn't care. He just wants to shove the wave in so they can start looking for some more opportunities. Hedgehog is in the area. I'd be surprised if they find anything here.
They won't. Hawk is going to move over that way at the least, so Hedgehog bats an eye back over there, but I believe it was warded out by Hawk. So for now, and I like the call that Hawk's gone for here, the Chronos Pendant and the Conduit Gem. Conduit Gem's not one we see a lot of, but Chronos Pendant first, I really like what this is doing for the god.
Yeah, these two items work exceptionally well together. Likely going to be seen. Oh boy, that's a lot of damage.
That is a lot of damage. Let's see if the crits come through. They do not. The ult is expended, and both will walk away at about the same HP, but iPort's going aggressively. They blink over the wall, and Trickster Spirit through. Looks like a pick comp might be in the works for the Olympus Bolts.
That's where this Daji shines, is their ability to chase down these targets and pick them off from out of vision. That's what iPort finally gets the opportunity to do. Finally works out for them as well. Looking back towards Hawk a little bit here. Chalice of Healing just got picked up. I am not the biggest fan of that, personally. I guess it keeps them a little bit sustained. It does counteract the dot from iPort a little bit. I'm not sure it's going to be enough to fully counteract that, but it's a little bit of something. I can see the reasoning behind it. What these items are, the Chronos Pendant means he's going to have a lot of bombs available to him very easily. And once we hit level 20, expect to see that gem turn into Conduit Gem. Just trying to keep those abilities keep popping out. Interesting item pick up across the board here. Dominance as well for iPort.
Yeah, I was thinking this was going to be a Transcendence to start things off. I guess it's not, but did see a bit of an aggression go down there. iPort forced into the ultimate, but couldn't land a home on any of the chains. But aggressive plays as the supports this game not stuck to the duo lane instead. They're going mid lane. Great stun from Hawk from there, coming through from Hawk. The Night Terror dot might be enough, but Johnny's just going to walk into the tower and take the kill anyway. Now we've got a rotation coming through from the Living Nightmare. Jockin's here, but it's still just a 3v3. Big land full, and Johnny will very deftly deal with that one with the ultimate themselves, because he gets very lucky with another great peel here from Hawk, who again, this Agni's utility cannot be understated when Hawk's playing it.
Just such good fights from Mambo right now. This is not the group you want to be taking. Jockin in a bad spot. Your Spudio just catches him. Should be able to retreat. With Retribution used. Blur. Well, where does the fighting ever end? I mean, look at this. They've been fighting in mid lane. They're fighting in the jungle as well. No more kills have come through. You do force a couple members out there. No.
Oh, Spadio,
my.
no ultimate available to him, and one crit to the back of the head. Nice work from Hedgehogs. Clean it up. It's 3-3 as we come on in towards that 8-minute mark. But in terms of gold, it is a tiny lead for the Hex Mambo here as Solo inside. Sega's still not having a fun game.
No, I can't imagine he will be for a while. Hedgehog!
Why are you here? Biport, why are you here as well? But that was both. That was a blink from iPort as Hedgehog ambushes in. They really value this green buff that much as to allow 3 members to get stunned. Why?
They got the buff, Blur. They got the gold. They got the XP. Big ups for the Bolts. You know, now they get.
But because iPort was CC'd and rooted in place, he ends up picking up the green buff as well.
All part of the plan. All part of the plan. Now, iPort can make Impact's green buff last longer. Actually, I don't think the green buff affects itself. So, they're just not going to do a whole lot with those. But they did double up on gold and XP. And that's what they needed, right? They're still not ahead. They're still not even. But sometimes you have to make plays like that. They didn't get punished for it all that hard. Yes, they took some damage. Yes, they did get 3-man stunned. No, it's not a great look. But they still walked out with all of their lives and one of the Mambo's buffs. That's just 1 camp less in XP and gold for the Mambo. Those are sometimes the risks you have to take. Still maintaining good control on the gold buff. Nah, Kazakh should be able to get out of there no problem. He's A-okay. What is next thing to look at, though, is going to be this gold Fury. We're now approaching the 10-minute mark. 3-3, Mambo have a very slight lead. Expect them to be the aggressors.
iPort, you cannot just step up. Johnny gets pulled back towards the tower. Living Nightmare hits iPort. I believe it's going to do enough damage to kill here. Jocking's going aggressive. Back on through. 2-man knock up, 2-man stun. And it's not good enough. Johnny ends up falling to Hedgehogs. They're all going in on this aggressive dive here. Are the Olympus Bolts? It works out for them. They have 2 TKOs to deal with. And this whole time, Spudio's pushed down the left side. And this mid lane is held.
Yeah, right now, Bolts are hanging on. iPort does get poked out pretty significantly at the start there, but what that does is it opens up an opportunity for the Bolts to get aggressive themselves. Johnny steps a little too far forward. iPort gets the ult off, Pow allows him right on in. Hedgehog's able to capitalize on that. That's the kind of plays they need to be able to facilitate. The question is, can they do that without almost losing iPort entirely? Yeah, he still got the ultimate off, still found value in that fight, but the TKO still sent him back and meant that they couldn't capitalize on Johnny being dead by going to the Gold Fear. They didn't have the numbers they needed for it at this stage in the game. Now, we're still at an even point. Still Mambo who's leading. Bolt's aggressing.
And at this point in time, we're back to what we saw in Game 1. 3v4 situation over for this buff. Great root out. Stops Hedgehog from going aggressive, so Johnny does get to disengage from this. But this time, Bolt's a bit hesitant to go towards this Gold Fury. They're here, but it's not that same spark we saw from Game 1. They are going to pull it. Let's see if Hex Mambo can go for it. Night Terror comes down, but no one else from Hex Mambo's here, so they are going to go ahead and give this one up.
Yeah, that's not a whole lot the Kaz can do on his own there. This does even things up a little bit, but somehow, Fleur, the gold lead seems to be growing rather than shrinking. And my mind has to go to Julio, which is the only person we haven't really seen on the map so far. He's just been sitting in this right lane and just constantly farming. He's just healthier than Sager, which is weird given that Sager's an Aphrodite. I'm not sure how the Mambo are actually maintaining this so well right now. 1,500 up. Bolts made a small dent, but they haven't found the key to actually closing this gap entirely. They're looking for fights, they're finding good picks, but the Mambo are simply on the map, taking these camps pretty much on cooldown. Hedgehog hasn't fallen behind just yet, but neither is he ahead, and he's the one getting the kills on the Bolts. Something has to change to facilitate them a little bit more here. Question is, where do they go? Maybe it's this right side.
Oh boy, that's Aphrodite out forced. Sega's down to about 500 HP. Cozy's is around the backside. If they do feel comfortable diving, good stun. Stops the rest of it, and great silence. Johnny blinks forward and will ult, but does next to no damage. Finally, they turn back around. It's a big fight going down in this right side of the map. Import a bit off the mark with the ultimate themselves, but iPort up in the sky, able to bring Johnny back down to the ground. And that's a double kill now for the Olympus Bolts. Julio gets sought out in the jungle by Hedgehogs. He's going to dash on in aggressively. Hawk just now showing up. That's a triple kill for this mid lane Darji. From 1-3 to 4-3. It's a big turnaround, but look at what Hex Mambo are doing. They're mitigating their losses. Spudio is pushing down this left side tier 2.
Blur, the only question I have during all of that is, where is Hawk? Mambo is so aggressive on the right side of the map, deep in the enemy jungle. Hawk's just clearing out mid lane. They need to make a choice, right? Do they want to facilitate Hawk and allow him to farm? Because when he rotates, he does stuff like that. He does damage like that, Blur. Or do they want to fight? If they want to fight, they have to have Hawk there, because this is their big area damage. This is the way they win fights, is by getting Hawk the damage out. Now,
Jockin, aggressive positioning, gets picked off by Johnny in a great crushing wave. And iPort, unfortunately, could not back him up, and it feels like that meat grinder at the end of game number 1, everyone going in to save everyone else. I'm not thinking if it's even possible to begin with. Hedgehogs still hadn't been able to heal up to a comfortable position. And this build path thing that we've got a little bit of time, I wanted to ask about. We've seen the tanky circuits. We've seen the full crit circuits. This is a mix of both. And I'm not sure that's going to mean it excels at either.
That is generally what it does mean. If you're trying to go and get the best of both worlds, you're generally not actually getting the best. You're getting somewhere in the middle, maybe towards even the lower end. Yeah, you'll be a little bit more durable, but you won't be bursting the targets. And because you're not bursting the targets, you have to stay in combat for a little bit more. But since you're not as durable as you would be if you went for the full tank build, you're probably not winning the fight either. Hedgehog is in a weird position where he's kind of relying on the true damage from the last Whisper to do the brunt of the work, and then try to wrap things up with the crits that come out from what may just be a Death Bringer. Good lord, what am I
You'll
on?
get there eventually. It's early morning. It's early in the morning, mate. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Hedgehogs, though, just about wiggles them way out of a bad spot. Let's see if that defense or crit comes online right now. Beads gets them away, but this is the first time we're going to see the Aphrodite in this engagement. iPort, though, thanks to the Undying Love, does get into the sky. Unfortunately, though, not enough damage output. Johnny blinks forward aggressively. iPort, thanks to some shells and protections from Sega, comes up big, but the Hex Mambo are not letting this go. They're trying to root them off. Johnny leading the charge down into this side of the map. Might be good. Hawk dashes aggressively. They find Jockin with a stun. At this point, it's a rough look. There was a crushing wave that hit members, but it did no damage, and he's turned around and burnt out. Now Living Nightmare lets Johnny get just a little bit higher up. Jockin putting in some huge work. Julio's trying to find him, but the CC chain is good. Bolts are bitten back hard.
They're finally on the same page. Julio goes down, and Kha'Zix's the only one left in this fight. Gonna go ahead and mosey their way on out. Mambo, not quite on it on that one. Impeccable Aegis from Jockin to immune the crushing wave. That's what really turned that fight around for them. The fact that that one of the biggest sources of damage on this team found zero value, and then Jockin just said, well, I'm still alive, I still have basic attacks, I guess I'll just keep shooting them off. And it just kind of turns the fight around on them. Julio tries to get in there, tries to do the damage he needed to, but he misses the dash. He misses the stun. And that's what signed Julio's death warrant. He wasn't able to hit Jockin with it, pushes himself further away from his team, closer to the enemy Phoenix, and then he just wobbles around with nowhere to go, no cooldowns. He was trying desperately to wait for it to come back off cooldown, but Jockin just kept blasting away, and with the Chernobog passive dealing 100% damage as well, it's really quick to melt tanks like this Kukulin. We're not able to stick around. Overall, Bolts finally executed a fight as a team, and they're able to win the fight overall. They're still not in the best position of the game. It's only about even right now, but it's showing you how much fight is left on this squad. They don't care about game one. They're playing their own Smite, and they're making it work for them.
And now that this Aphrodite has started to group with the team, you can see, even after the nerfs to the protections that she's sharing, how impactful that was. Hedgehog feels tankier. iPort gets to live because they were up in the Undying Love. So it's a good look for them, but now might be wanting that Undying Love again because they're forced to beads just a single route with how much pressure as Hawk on Agni is doing.
Now Hawk doing the best he can. Paolau. Perhaps a misclick on that one is what we'll call that. Right now.
Yeah, don't worry.
Oh.
Don't worry. A couple thousand people didn't just see that, but they might be seeing an aggressive fight onto Johnny, who's forced to ult defensively again. A huge landfall pulls Johnny back in, but there's no follow-up now. Jockin's going aggressively to find it, but he gets his beads forced because Spudio's on this rotation as well. Now let's see if Aphrodite can somehow keep everyone alive. iPort is still around, but with no ult, no beads, no life for them. Cozy picks that one up, and now Sega's forced to ult themselves and only themselves. There's going to be a big fight for Hedgehog if they can find someone, but Mambo just turn and burn everyone.
Hedgehog does dive in, but he gets cut down as well. Spudio now leading the charge with Julio.
And he's gone immediately. A triple kill coming through. Make that
Quadra?
a quadra kill and a deicide. 5 for 1. Hawk more than happy to go down for this one. Fire Giant on the table, 20 minutes in. And Hex, Mambo have had enough. We don't care if you get the Aphrodite. We don't care if you want to try and beat down Johnny. Johnny is not the only threat. Say our names. Julio, Cozy, Hawks, and Spudio show up.
I just don't understand why the Bolts chose to take that fight there. They knew iPort had no beads. They knew iPort had no ultimate. And iPort's ult has been doing a lot of work in those fights, whether it's forcing beads out from key members of Mambo or just pulling them out of position. The fact that the Bolts chose to force that without safety for iPort just meant that there really wasn't a whole lot he could do to survive that fight. He immediately got blown up, and at that point, Hex Mambo just surged forward. As soon as they found a single pick, they began dismantling the rest of the Bolts. And that feels like how these two teams really operate. If either one can take a integral piece of the puzzle away from the other team, they can roll through these fights pretty easily. They're firing on all cylinders, and the Bolts have to be making sure they're staying on top of things, and they're not getting greedy with things. They have to understand where their success is coming from, and not try to force it when they don't have the tools to succeed anymore. Now Mambo, all 5 with the Fire Giant. Hawk did respawn in time. Be putting everyone to this left side. This is where they ended the game at last time. Remember, there were still tier 2 towers in mid and right. Can they repeat that performance? They're going to go for the Phoenix.
I mean, no one on Olympus Bolts has even showed up. Import gets a nice ult to body block some basics. The Phoenix will live a little longer, but Julio's tanking this up for so long, they just wait it out, and the Phoenix ends up falling at this point. Now everyone is retreating. We'll see if Hex Mambo want to go for the same play again. This time, they'll path out, but Hedgehog is making the same kind of play, looking to group someone out, but they just can't.
All right, now Mambo is just looking to take control of this game. As soon as you see Mambo on that left tier 2, both had to be resetting and getting back to base. Because they were late, their base is now broken. They've lost a Phoenix. It's going to make this defense a little bit harder all around. They are trying to split the map here a little bit. iPort goes ahead and takes down that right side tier 2 to get a little bit of gold in their pockets. And Mambo wants to step forward.
Let's see if iPort can make an impact in this engagement. The rest of the team is keeping Mambo at the Phoenix line and no closer. Hedgehog still looking to loop around, but is pinged out immediately on this rotation. In fact, Johnny might actually just head them off at the red buff. And Hex Mambo are going to call it there for now. Don't want to take a full fight, even with this Fire Giant.
I like that call from them. You don't want to push things too much. Yes, you've gotten a lot of gold off this push. You haven't spent any of it yet. Play this one smart, play this one safe, reset, get that Pyromancer, add a little bit more to your pockets. Bolts may have found an opportunity, but Kha'Zix's here. Not likely to be a free gold Fury for the Bolts, and indeed that window has now passed. Mambo gonna pick that one up as well. They're just putting a chokehold on this game. They back off?
Okay, because they want to respect the call there from Bolts, but at this point, the Hedgehogs and iPort both have to be on the same target. And I guess follow-up questions, who is that target? And if not, how are they both living?
I think right now, the Bolts have to make sure Johnny dies or finds no value. Force him to ult defensively, force him to ult into a bad spot. Either way, remove Johnny from the equation. Every time they've been able to do that so far, it's led to some good fights for them. Problem is, we're now reaching a point where Spudio's level 20. He is Ishtar. He's almost full bill. It's not crit, but it's still a lot of damage. Hedgehog doesn't have as much damage as you might have expected. Did opt for some of those tankier items. So yes, iPort and Hedgehog need to be on the same target, but it's going to take them a little bit of work to actually kill him. Johnny can simply crushing wave through them, deal a lot of damage. Now with Kha'Zix here to silence people out, it really makes the equation very difficult for the Bolts.
Look at this, iPort's trying to go from one side, Hedgehog's just finding what they can on the other. It's Hawk who eats the last breath at this point. Jogging goes in to look for him. They'll grab the one, and a big pull disrupts Johnny, but it's not good enough because Spudio's still there to clean up the kill. So the rest of the fight is blazing forward. Spudio's leader's Cal should be good to give everyone that little bit of extra damage. It's another double kill, and it might just be a triple kill. No, it is a triple kill. Alternative timeline or not, you will fall down here. Hedgehogs and iPort the only two left, and both of them unsure how to proceed here.
Yeah, I don't think Hedgehog has any chance of stopping this particular push. iPort's not even ready to defend the base. There's still a tier 2 tower standing, so he's got some time to work with. Likely, we'll see Jockin and Impa come back up before things get too dangerous. Hedgehog still has the flank on them.
The bomb? Hello? Defense at all, Bolts? The Hedgehog tries to go for a loop around play, but the Phoenix... What? Analyze while I have a breakdown.
Well, we will have a breakdown as that is part of the analysis. I think the Bolts just realized that there was no chance they could save that particular Phoenix. They only had 2 people. There were 3 with the Fire Giant and a Runic Bomb. 2 of those 3 are heavy damage dealers. Most likely just said, okay, let's just make sure that Hedgehog and iPort stay alive, so that if Mambo tries to go for a little bit more, if they try to go for a game end, we should have the numbers to defend. They didn't want to risk everything on a simple Phoenix. Want to make sure they didn't simply lose the game. And I think it ends up being the right decision for them, because frankly, Mambo probably could have just started walking at a Titan if Hedgehog and iPort died there. We'll keep themselves afloat for now, but for how much longer is the question. Keep an eye on that left side. Fire Minions are hitting that bird.
And you put every single member in the left side and not one of these members can go ahead and clear the wave. The Phoenix just about holds on with 200 or so health, but it's given Hex Mambo a good target here. Olympus Bolts are far forward looking for a fight before that engagement could come about. Mambo recognizes, just back up to group up.
Right side still has Fire Minions pouring in. Bolts have to be careful. They've got everyone on this left side.
iPort goes in aggressively on Dying Love, lets them get into their ultimate. They pull back in Spudio, and Spudio does end up falling down. Cody picks up iPort as Hedgehog finds Johnny around the backside. This could be the turnaround that they need here. Julio on the front side eats a lot of the damage, but thankfully is tanky enough to sustain through it. Everyone's split. They need to find eyes on Hawk. I just can't find him.
They can't take this fight for long. They still have to be wary of the right side fire minions. They're still here. Hedgehog is making the reset now. But it means they cannot continue the aggression. It means this Primal Fury goes the way of Hex Mambo, and there's nothing the both can say about it. They wanted to win that fight and just do as much damage as they could to the Mambo, and they did a good job. They took down Johnny, they took down Spudio, but they needed a little bit more. They needed to at least also kill Hawk, so they could put someone defending the base and then send the rest of them to this Fury. Not able to get that far. They have to settle with just getting some gold in their pockets from the kills, keeping this Titan alive a little bit longer. Next play
This
point.
is an aggressive play.
Yeah,
this is a very aggressive call. It's that pick comp style. Hedgehogs and Aphrodite feel like a very good combo, but Hawks so beautifully played that. Dash out and a stun for good boot. But now they might be in trouble. Sega needs to get into this puddle. Will Undying love to ensure that they get away? But that's a Pyromancer for him. Fire Giants respawned and Hex Mambo already here.
Fire Giant here. Sager, no Undying Love. Keep an eye on Hedgehog. He's making the wraparound, looking for a flank. Can he make the hero play?
See if it is going to be that way. Hex Mambo get the Fire Giant. Hedgehog pulls the ire of a couple. And Sagan trying to go ahead and back them up. Highport silenced out by great work from Nox. Does get into the ult. Will hopefully pull one member back. It is Spudio who's pulled in, but Julio is still tanking up a storm on the front side. Johnny's damage is just too much to deal with. Spudio, Impod, everyone's falling here. Sega's gone, Hedgehog's gone, iPod's the only one left. Sure, they kill off the support, but these four members could just walk in and end.
You pulled Spudio in, but the joke is on iPort. That is exactly where Spudio wanted to be, and now, only one defender, 4 with fire. It's gotta be a hero play from iPort.
It might be the hero play, but are they the protagonist in this story? I don't think so. Johnny's gonna dive the fountain to clean them up on a fountain with the kill. Olympus Bolts, however, will end up falling here. Another 2-0 for Hex Mambo.
Unfortunate for Bolts. iPort found the last Palau, but only hit one target. And if there's no follow-up on that target, all you've done is relocated Spudio somewhere better for him to find the shots that he wanted. Julio did a fantastic job just zoning out the rest of the team, making sure that no one could burst Spudio on the landing there. And the Bulls weren't able to find a successful fight. Kha'Zix was keeping too busy on the left side of the fight. I don't know why they were so busy with Kha'Zix. They couldn't kill him. He was just dropping silences, taking damage. At the end of the day, though, that's how this one breaks down. Spudio picks himself up a quadra kill, a triple kill. Pretty sure he had a double kill in that last fight. Spudio was a terror on this Ishtar.
And the thing is, as well, is it's not even as if this was a... the Olympus Bolts saw this coming out of left field, like, oh my god, they picked on her, and suddenly Spudio's running this down. This is an Ishtar. This is a god who's been meta for so long now. Either find a way to deal with it, which I don't think Jockin had the ability to do on either pick in this game, or get rid of it. I don't think you needed to ban away 5 picks from Julio here, especially when they just go ahead and run at you with armor and Hugh Lane.
Yeah, the solo laner kind of just does solo lane things regardless of what pick you may give him. I understand the desire to not want him on a Vamana. I understand not want him on the Guan Yu, who's just runs down with CC immunity and you can't kill him at all. 5 bans? It's a little bit excessive there. I think there was also a little bit of target priority issues there. Consistently, I saw Jockin ulting in, and yeah, he killed Hawk. That's great. Spudio is still free casting on you. You're still dying to the rest of the team afterwards. Jockin goes in way too deep consistently, and they just never were able to put down Johnny and stop him from putting out the damage bursts that were allowing Spudio to just put out so much cleanup potential.
It's an unfortunate look. I like the idea from Bolts, just go in, shake something up, try a game plan. It just did not work out in this set, but credit where credit is due. This was Hex Mambo, still reigning undefeated here in the EU side of things, so congratulations to them. But with that said, that is going to go ahead and end off the EU SCC here for week number 4. Thank you very much to everyone who has been watching. I'm going to go and pack all this stuff up now and move 3,000 miles over westward to go and get married soon. So from everyone here, we're going to peach it. Enjoy SPL. I'll see you around.